Today, we're going to focus on how to live as long as possible, but not only how to live long as possible, but to be as healthy as possible as well. I'm Risa Morimoto, your host, and you're watching Modern Aging, where we chat about innovative and holistic ways to elevate our health and well-being as we age. If you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to subscribe. All you got to do is click on that little red button below with that little bell next to it to be sure to be notified whenever a new episode is uploaded. If you've been liking these videos, I'd be grateful if you give it a little thumbs up. That way, it tells YouTube to show it to other like-minded people. So today my guest is Dr. Kaplan. Dr. Kaplan is the founder and medical director of the Kaplan Center for Integrative Medicine. We talked about all things lifestyle, from sleep deprivation, why you're not getting enough sleep, mental toxicity, the foods that you should be eating, exercise, what kind of exercise you should be doing at minimum. We talked about spiritual health, all these things that encompass a balanced life that will increase your longevity and your health in the long run. So you got to check it out. Longevity is something that we all want, but without the high quality of life, what's the point, right? So we want to live longer, but we also want to be healthy as we're doing it. But the problem is that we're all getting sick, right? We're getting sicker earlier. We have chronic illnesses are rampant. So what can we do? Why are we getting so sick?
Well, the first point I want to emphasize is what you said. It's not about living longer, it's about living well. All right. We want to be living vitally up until the day we die. And realistically, the data tells us that we can probably make that to 120. Vibrant, healthy, active. Being alive for the sake of being alive is of no interest.
That sounds exhausting, living to 120.
I don't know. We're going to make 60 the new 30.
Yeah, right? No kidding. So before we get into the nitty gritty, I'd love to hear more about your background, how you came to have this philosophy of holistic health and kind of a whole life approach and lifestyle to medicine.
So I've been involved. So when I first got out of medical school, I was elected to the board of the American Holistic Medical Association. And so this was a group of docs who was at the cutting edge of trying to understand uh, beyond conventional medicine how to actually treat people, stay healthy, and thrive, and also to help our patients better. So I worked with them for 5 years, and then I was involved in the American Academy of Medical Acupuncture. I was on their board for 5 years, and I was on the Medical Acupuncture Research Foundation for 5 years. And I worked with Norm Shealy, who is the kind of the father of behavioral pain medicine in this country. I'm forwarded in pain medicine and family medicine. And Norm founded the first behaviorally oriented pain program in the country. He's the guy who invented the TENS unit and the dorsal column stimulator. He's a neurosurgeon and said, neurosurgery isn't necessarily the way to do this. We can do this better. And so we were looking at biofeedback, and we were looking at nutrition, and we were looking at exercise, and we were looking at how and mental health in terms of how is it that we really maximize our internal healing capacity. There's this concept called placebo, right? Placebo is the thing you want to beat whenever you're proving something right. The thing about placebo is nothing more than the body healing itself. So really what we want to do is exploit the placebo effect as much as conceivably possible, because that's us working to keep us
So it's
healthy.
not a fake thing, right? The placebo effect. What's happening with the placebo effect if, in fact, we're actually healing ourselves?
So that is a good question. And if I can answer that question, I'll have a Nobel Prize. I can tell you what the effects are that we see from this. Let me tell you how.
Well, that's good. So then I can be involved with you getting the Nobel
Excellent.
Prize.
Excellent. We'll head to Sweden together. It'll be lovely. So the deal is, what happens? The body has phenomenal regenerative capacity. The body is self-healing. If it wasn't self-healing, we'd have been dead long ago. We repair ourselves. The question becomes, what breaks down so that that healing process gets disrupted? And then what can we do, knowing that, in order to be able to stay as healthy as possible, as long as possible? The bottom line piece of information on that is inflammation. Inflammaging is the term that has been bandied around. But if we back up to this concept of inflammation, you get back to the basics. You got to sleep. Okay? Sleep is kind of 1, 2, 3. You need 7, 8 hours sleep a night, unless you're a teenager. Then you need 9.5, to almost 10 hours a night, and they're not getting it. And what happens when you sleep? Because sleep is a really interesting thing. Sleep isn't an event. Sleep is a whole bunch of things. There's lots of stages to sleep. So you get slow wave sleep, stages 3, 4, which we determine by EEG reading. All right. If I put you in a lab and I wake you up at night, every time you go into stage 3, 4 sleep, at the end of a week, you will be in chronic pain. Honest? So stage 3, 4 sleep, adequate amounts of stage 3, 4 sleep is crucial for us to be healthy. Why is that? Well, it turns out that the brain doesn't have a lymphatic system per se. Now, the lymphatics are all the drainage ditches in our body that take away all the waste products. Okay? The brain doesn't have that built in. But what does happen is, especially at night, there's specialized cells in the brain called lymphatics that create these channels. So they're not always there, but they come and they go by glial cells. And the lymphatic system is most active during stage 3, 4 sleep. So your brain, which is the most metabolically active organ in the day, meaning it produces a lot of waste products because it's very busy. So we need to be able to drain that off. Your brain actually swells. If you're not getting enough sleep, what happens is you don't get that drainage off. And now what happens? Focus, concentration are impaired. Your decision making is impaired, right? These are all symptoms, signs of inflammation, and inflammation specifically in the brain. So your ability to focus, concentrate, your ability to read, your ability to have a coherent conversation is all impaired. And all of us know this. If we've not had adequate sleep, we are not performing well. We're slow in our reaction times. And so sleep is absolutely essential in order for us to maintain good health and reduce that inflammation in our brain and in our body.
I think so many of us want to sleep, but we just can't. I mean, so how do we solve this problem of insomnia when, people just don't know or can't turn their brains off?
So there's a number of things that you can do with it. And let me back up one other thing on sleep. Some people sleep all the time and they're always sleepy. Okay. Now, there's a thing called chronic fatigue syndrome. There are a number of illnesses which can lead to that. We can talk about that. But one of the things that we want to pay a lot of attention to is sleep apnea. About 5% of people have sleep apnea, and 85% of the people who have it don't know it. This is a serious health crisis because what's happening? You're snoring. Your oxygen, your airways are collapsing during the night, and you're literally starving your brain for oxygen because of the sleep apnea. So snoring is not just an annoyance. Snoring is potentially a symptom of a very serious disease, and we need to get that checked out. And what kind of problems do you see if you have sleep apnea? You wake up, I don't care if you have 10, 12 hours sleep, you're not rested. In fact, the more you sleep, the less rested you are because you're denying your brain oxygen during the night. If you're having problems staying awake during meetings, now some of them, rightfully, are boring, so you fall asleep.
You're right.
But as a rule, you shouldn't be falling asleep during meetings. You shouldn't be falling asleep in the theater. You shouldn't be falling asleep right after lunch. You shouldn't be falling asleep at stop signs. And it's really important if you're a physician that you not fall asleep or nod off while you're taking a patient history. And I know that because that was me. I have sleep apnea.
Wow.
And I had really severe sleep apnea to the point where, that pulse ox we've been watching, every time somebody gets COVID, we want to make sure you don't fall below 94. Okay? You
Right.
want to be 94%, 98% on a normal pulse ox. At night, my oxygen levels were dropping into the 60s.
Whoa.
Now,
Wow.
this is a serious disease because it will take 10 years off your life. It puts you at higher risk for heart disease, diabetes, and depression, and obesity. And it's an easy fix. The fix is a CPAP. Okay, sometimes a dental appliance if it's mild, but a CPAP that blows oxygen, continuous positive airway pressure. And I have to tell you, I will not travel anywhere without one. I use it all the time. And as soon as I started using it, I went from exhausted always to back full of energy. 6.5, 7 hours of sleep, I was good to go.
Whoa, that's amazing. So how do you know that you even have sleep apnea? I mean, if you don't have a partner or
Aside from my
something,
wife
or
threatening me,
yeah,
rightfully
exactly.
so, my wife has saved my life on several occasions. She claimed she was a physician in another lifetime. I tell her it's not transferable, but the fact of the matter is, she does get a lot of things right. Smart lady. So, but Fran was insistent because I had done a sleep study that was one of the early sleep studies, and it said I was fine. And Fran said, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, and was insistent that I repeat the study. And sure enough, when I repeated the study, grossly abnormal. So you can get the diagnosis a couple of ways. One is if you're suspicious, there's a test called an Epworth, Epworth. Look that up online, Google it. It takes you 2 seconds to go through that test. And if you're scoring 9 or above on that test, you need to talk to your doctor. Okay? Second is there are home studies that we can do. There's a device called a WatchPat, which can be ordered also online through certain places. It's a disposable device. You put it on at home at night and you wear it over the night and you see how you're doing. And that will tell you whether or not you'll need to consult with a physician ultimately, but that will at least tell you whether or not you're having trouble with sleep apnea. So easy way to make the diagnosis, easy way to check. So something that should not be missed, we really want to pay attention to it. Now, as far as dealing with insomnia is concerned, lots of things. One is room temperature's got to be right. The fact is about 68 degrees, 69 degrees. My wife and I will argue. She'll say 66 degrees,
Yeah.
but
I don't know any couple that agrees on
we'll push to
temperature.
68 degrees. So you want to make sure the room temperature is right. You want to make sure the room is dark. Bedrooms should be used for a limited number of things. Okay? So you shouldn't be working in bed. You should be, if you're going to work and you need to get out of bed, go in the study, go work. Okay, go in the living room, whatever else, just go somewhere else. Do not turn on electronics and turn off all electronics at least an hour before you go to bed. And don't sleep with any electronics next to your bed. Okay, or if you're going to, put them on airplane mode.
Yeah, I believe that too. I mean, is it because of the EMF waves, or we shouldn't be tempted?
It's absolutely because of EMF waves. You're absolutely correct. It's also because when you're reading, your brain wakes up to a different wave pattern. And so you'll tend to wake yourself up as opposed to help yourself get to sleep. So if you read, you can read Kindle paper. That actually won't keep you awake because of the blue blockers. But it's also good to wear a blue blocking glass when you're looking at your screen to make sure that that's not stimulating you to stay awake. So the blue light coming off, and then the EMF. So take them, and you want the devices preferably out of the room. You don't want your router sitting in your bedroom. And so you want these things away.
So talk to me a little bit more about the EMF waves, because I mean, we all have cell phones, we have Apple Watches, we have all this stuff on our bodies all the time, and I know it's virtually impossible to get rid of it. But like if I put my cell phone in my back pocket, I can actually feel it, like the feel, the warmth, the vibration of it, within 10 minutes.
We're in the middle of a massive experiment. The massive experiment is we are bathing ourselves in these electromagnetic waves. And what's going to be the long term consequences? Not so sure. Uh, but what we do know is uh, there are people who are more sensitive to them than others, and that people who are really sensitive to them are really sensitive, and they're miserable with these things. They interfere with their thinking, their sleep, they make them fatigued. They really screw you up, as you know better than I, because of your own sensitivity to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to, and that's something physicians don't do a good job of, listening to their patients and saying, the patient says, I'm really sensitive when my cell phone's around or whatnot. It's like, and they write you off. And it's like, no, listen, because this is important. The patient's telling you something very important about themselves. So, one thing you can do is you can put your phone in airplane mode. That will cut that down. Certainly, if you're talking on the phone, it's not good to hold it up to your ear. You're much better off doing pods like I've got on here or a hard wire connection with earphones. But it'll dramatically reduce. We know that the cell phones are microwave generators. And we know that when you hold them up next to the ear, it significantly increases brain activity in that region. The old cell phones, the old blocks, bricks that we used to have, those were horrible and probably responsible for any of a number of brain cancers. Richard Novak was a columnist for the New York for not the New York Times, for the Washington Post, um, who who died of a brain tumor. But there was a number of journalists, and my suspicion is because they were using those early bricks, which were these massive EMF emitters, that because they were dying of brain tumors. And we demonstrated on functional MRIs the increased activity that was going on around the brain when you put these phones by you. So we want to be considerably more respectful. And you were talking about overall in terms of we've been focused on sleep, but the reality of the matter is one of our problems is we're poisoning ourselves. So I just talked to a patient this morning, 65-year-old guy. He's looking for optimal health. So one of the things that, and he feels good, he's in great shape, he exercises, his diet's right, all good, checking him out. His mercury levels are very high. Now, it's not a standard test people do, but we do. So mercury and lead levels. Why? Because he eats a lot of fish. All right? And the fact of the matter is we've soiled our nest. So what those coal-burning plants throw a huge amount of mercury into the upper atmosphere. It comes down in rain. It rains into the oceans. It gets taken up by the plankton, moves up the food chain. So the higher-end fish, the tuna fish, the shark, the swordfish in particular, and nobody should be eating that stuff. I mean, the level of mercury content is huge in those things. And tuna fish, the FDA says you should, if you're pregnant, you should not be eating more than 2 cans of tuna fish a week. Why? Because the mercury content is so high it will hurt the fetus. Well, what about mom? What about the rest of us? We shouldn't have mercury in our system. So we need to be attentive to this. And the problem is we think we're eating healthy. And certainly this patient of mine is eating very healthy, except we got to take him off all fish now. And we're starting to see it. Salmon generally isn't a problem, but we're starting to see it in the salmon also. So we've really got to clean up.
So it's the type of thing that if you stop eating fish, the mercury eventually leave your body, or will it stay within your body forever?
No, assuming the fish is the source or whatever the source is, the body will clear it. The body should clear it without any problem. And we'll see that in about 3 months' time. The other major source is the amalgams, which the dentists aren't using anymore, but the old silver amalgams had mercury in them, and those will kick out mercury into your system. And in fact, we've found an association between those silver amalgams and multiple sclerosis. So, yeah. Now, our dental association says it's malpractice to remove the amalgams just because you remove the amalgams. The Canadian Dental Association says, by the way, it's malpractice to put in an amalgam. So my opinion is you need to make decisions for yourself. I think it's worth having the amalgams removed. 1, 2 is generally not a problem, but if you've got 4 or 5, I'd get rid of them because those are sources of mercury. Ongoing, they've been proven. So what are you doing to optimize your health? And these are the kind of things that we can make ourselves healthy. Dental care, by the way, overall is extremely important in staying healthy because if your gums are infected, your teeth are infected, you are in a chronic state of inflammation and your health is going to deteriorate as a result. So making sure you've got good dental hygiene is also extremely important.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the fact that if you have disease in your mouth, it's literally going through your bloodstream, which means it's going through your body much more quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it keeps your entire immune system on high alert, right? So your immune system is overfunctioning. And so you're constantly in a state of inflammation. Well, inflammation is a good thing and a bad thing. We need some inflammation. That's what keeps us alive. That's what keeps cells to repair and grow. Inflammation is very important in that. However, if there's too much inflammation, if we're chronically inflamed, we're chronically sick. And then we have problems. So it's the balance of everything. And one of the best anti-inflammatories for the brain? Exercise. There is no better anti-inflammatory for the central nervous system than exercise.
So when you're talking about exercise, are you talking about cardio every day, or can it be walking or doing some sort of strength training?
Walking is cardio. Okay? So 10,000 steps. You know where 10,000 steps came from?
No, I don't, but it's the magic number, right? But I'm sure it's arbitrary though, right?
It was the name of the Japanese company that developed one of the early trackers.
What?
It was never based on any science. Honest to God.
That's the best marketing story I've ever heard.
So, the amount of exercise you need, there are several things. One is I deal with a very sick population also. I deal with people with chronic fatigue syndrome and post treatment Lyme syndrome. Uh, and in, in that population, the rule is always pacing, not pushing. I don't want people crashing. So we want you exercising up to the extent that you can, but I don't want you so the next day you're completely wiped out. That's way overdone. So we don't want that happening. And in my population, sometimes exertion is reading for 5 minutes, and that's the end of what they can do. So one of the things that happens, I work with a very sick population, but I've learned a great deal from this population about how to stay healthy and live longer because we know what's going wrong in them and how to prevent it from going wrong in us. So my practice actually is on two ends. My practice is on these people with chronic illness, and my practice is on helping people stay alive, which legitimately should be into your 120s. But it's not just living again, it's about having a vital, healthy life. So you've got the energy to do the things you want to do, be engaged in life, enjoy your life. And if you're going to do that, by the way, you have to pay attention to several things. You got to pay attention to your finances because you got to have enough money in order to be able to live that long. You've got to pay attention to your spiritual health. Meditation is an extremely effective way to reduce inflammation in the body, but it's also a way of helping get clarity as you're dealing with people about how to be loving, compassionate, and direct with not just your other people, but also with yourself. So working through those old emotional traumas, working and not creating additional ones is extremely important about being healthy into our hundreds.
I think we underestimate how much that affects our physical health with all the stress.
Childhood abuse puts you at much higher risk for development of uh, autoimmune diseases, heart disease, obesity, diabetes. This there are long-term consequences to childhood abuse. And obviously we want to stop it at the source, but if you are a victim of child abuse, it's crucial that you get the help. And there are good therapies available to help you process this, metabolize it, if you will, so that it's no longer a burden on your being, because that will hold you back from being healthy and that will keep you in a state of chronic inflammation. If you're chronically on hyper alert, right? If you've got post-traumatic stress syndrome, I was just dealing with a woman yesterday, very difficult childhood. She's in her 40s. And as soon as she starts talking about some of this stuff, she's back in that emotional state again. So this is still very much alive within her, even though it was 30 plus years ago. It's important that we heal that. And that's crucial also in terms of leading a long, healthy life. So attending to that as well. And then the other part of the spirituality is having a purpose to life. Why are you here? What are you doing? And is it, to be of service to your family? Is it to be able to enjoy a flower and to truly connect with nature? Is it a, a purpose? One of my big purposes is I've got we've got these kids who are in juvenile detention and in psychiatric institutions who are being told they're crazy, when in fact a very significant percentage of them are sick. They're sick with chronic illness. And we need to properly diagnose these people so that we can get them the help they need so that it doesn't lead to a lifetime of suffering. And so one of the things I'm doing is through my foundation working to do a research project, to do a proper survey on these people. And we're betting the answer is going to be somewhere between 25 and 35, possibly 45% of these people actually have chronic illness that can be treated, should be treated. And if we do treat it, their lives will be dramatically better. So this is something we're working for. And you need to do this. So the other thing about staying alive, or as a friend of mine says, don't die from anything stupid.
Wise words.
Richard's brilliant. What can I tell you? But the fact is, we have to be thoughtful about our activities, right? Bungee jumping, Maybe, but we want to be thoughtful about what activities we're engaging in, and we want to be making sure that we're not taking inappropriate risk. That when we do things, we've done things because we've thought them out, we've properly trained to do them. My acupuncturist here in the practice just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Okay, that was not on a whim. She spent 1 year getting into shape uh, to be able to do that. She was reading on all the equipment that she needed. And it's the same thing for life, by the way, right? What do you need to do in prep in order for the next 30 years, the next 50 years? And we have videos of her journey to Kilimanjaro, of all the steps she was taking, the equipment she had to learn about, the day hike she was taking, the weekend hikes, all of this stuff building up to increasing her strength, increasing her endurance, increasing her knowledge, so that when she hiked Mount Kilimanjaro, she was able to do it. And why not do that when you're 50 or 60?
Yeah, yeah, that's the main purpose of modern aging, right? How do we prevent from getting those chronic illnesses and understanding, prevention and understanding how we're getting sick and, I mean, you eat those cheeseburgers every day,
Right,
you're gonna have consequences. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
right. And so you had asked about exercise, and the answer is both aerobic as well as building muscle. Both are really important. They both do different things. So we want to be making sure that we're getting. The answer is if you're doing 5 to 6,000 steps a day, the research says good. We're really pleased about that. If you can do more, all the better. But that should be kind of the minimum that you're setting for yourself every day for aerobics, assuming you're in otherwise good health. If you're, as far as weights are concerned, probably exercising all the muscles of the body about 3 days a week. And weights you have to be thoughtful about. Again, you don't want to start lifting 450 pounds. You might want to start with 5 and use that to tone and build muscles. And there are cheats. So there's a thing called a katsu, the spelling of which I can't tell you. But the katsu is an armband that goes around your muscles and your thighs and your legs, and it restricts blood flow and causes your muscles to build much faster with less weights. Clever little device. I have no financial interest in this, but I do use them. And what are the hacks? What are the ways that you can help build your body and your strength? So exercise extremely important on a regular basis, a rational amount of exercise, so that you're staying healthy and that you're building your strength and your endurance as you move along.
Yeah, because like sitting has become the new smoking, right? And it's so hard for people to change their habits. So, what kind of advice do you have um, to get people off
Right.
the couch, right? To do 5 minutes perhaps, or, what can we do to initiate the change? Because that's usually the hardest step, right?
Right. Absolutely. The objective is build on success. Okay. Set realistic goals and achieve them. And that way you're constantly feeding back to yourself that I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. So a simple thing you can do is get a standing desk, standing sitting desk that goes up, desk that goes down. You can get a foot pedal underneath your desk that you can work while you're sitting at the desk. So you're getting a workout while you're sitting at the desk. That works. Uh, you can also get these fancy standing desks that have treadmills and walk on those while you're doing that. The other thing is simply get up and move around on a regular basis, hourly. There are there are apps that will tell you, it's time to get up and move around. I happen to track my activity level on a regular basis. I'm wearing a ring that does that tracking, but there are watches that do tracking, and paying attention to those and seeing if you're achieving goals. So that which is measured changes. And so you want to be constantly, uh, look, you take your car in for repair, right? You do maintenance on your house. Why would you neglect your body? And your body should be a daily thing that you're paying attention to, not obsessing, but paying attention to, saying, I'm going to take care of myself because I want to be able to go out and play with my children. I want to be able to go out and play with my grandchildren. I want to go out and be able to play with my great grandchildren. I want to go to Alaska. You want to go live. You want to go out and explore the world and be healthy and vital in order to be able to do that. And so when you keep in mind, what's the goal? Okay. Is the goal to get up in the morning and hang out in the house and watch TV? Or is the goal to see what's going on outside the world? Go look at the world around you. Then you're motivated to go take a walk. You're motivated to actually do things because you know you need to be in the shape in order to be able to do the things you want to do that are important to you. And so setting life goals is also very important. What is it? What's important to you? What is it that you think about and you go, cool, I get to do that. So you should have a future plan. You should have a set of goals. You should have a set of personal aspirations, things that you would like to participate in. And you need to not limit yourself. Set the great big goal, and then let's talk about the step by step by step by step in order to get there and celebrate every blessed step along the way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So going back to food a little bit, I mean, yes, we're not supposed to have any mercury. We know that. So what are other foods that we should be aware of? I mean, what's your feeling on sugar?
Uh, Not so crazy. A small amount of sugar is necessary, and it spices up life, and it's lovely. I think the forms that you get sugar in is important also. So honey, for instance, is a better form to get it than pure refined white sugar. Uh, so sugar is important. I will give you one single piece of advice, which if you take nothing else away from this conversation, take this. Eat more dark
Well,
chocolate.
that should make people happy. So when you're talking about dark chocolate,
I
what
would hope
percentage of cacao?
70% or better, 70% or better of pure chocolate, not with the nuts and the almonds and the raisins and all that, but just regular chocolate. 70% or better of chocolate. I happen to like a particular brand that's 77%, but 70% or better, no more than an ounce and a half. Okay. And enjoy it, sit and savor it. And guess what? It happens to be good for your heart, it happens to be good for your blood vessels, and it happens to be good for your brain and your mood. Great stuff,
That's
chocolate.
great. So people, I
Eat
think, are
more
going to be
chocolate.
running out and going shopping for chocolate right after this. But you're not talking about milk chocolate.
No, chocolate's not chocolate. The bars, and all the other stuff. It's all crap, and it's no good for you. Whereas true dark chocolate, and I happen to have, so I have a little bit of the 70% sitting on my desk right here because I'll snack on it periodically. But true strong dark chocolate uh, is is truly, and then you become now around here, it's become an obsession. We're always hunting for the next best chocolate. There's a lot of really good chocolates out there. And there's one that's made with olive oil.
Oh, wow.
It's a dark chocolate made with olive oil, and it's exquisite. It's a very unique flavor. So we'll have chocolate tastings in the office, and we will uh, we're each trying to top each other as to what's the next best chocolate we can bring in.
You brought up olive oil. So what's your opinion on fats and oils?
So again, the saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, not so good. I mean, the Crisco's and that's not good for us at all, as a matter of fact. Where, it's interesting that where the damage comes in is two things. It's not the meat, it's the bread. So it's the grains, and grains are important because we can get B vitamins from them aside from anything else, but the white bread is pure garbage. You want good bread if you're going to eat any, but you also have to be careful because in this country, we've really, again, screwed the pooch. So we have 1% of the population has celiac disease. That is, they are true autoimmunity to bread, to grains, wheat. And then you have 6 to 18% of people who are gluten sensitive. Okay. They get stomach upset, they get rashes, they get headaches. And why is that? Well, I think, and I haven't completely proven this yet, but I'm reasonably suspicious that it's because of GMOs. So these are the genetically modified grains. And so what happens is the grains are modified for the purpose of allowing you to spray as much pesticide and herbicide on the plants to not kill them. And the plants, unfortunately, take up these herbicides and these pesticides, and it increases crop yield, but it moves from the field to your Cheerios. And it turns out we probably shouldn't be eating herbicides. It may not be good for us. And why do I think that? Aside from a number of studies that have convinced me of such, uh, patient experience. I have patients who cannot tolerate gluten in any way, shape, or form in this country. They go to France. France doesn't allow for glyphosates, it doesn't allow for GMOs. And guess what? They don't have any trouble eating their croissants or their baguettes.
Wow.
So you can do that. Fried foods, horrible for us. We shouldn't be frying foods, period. So you want to be little fried food as possible. Every now and then you need something. But for the most part, you want to be rational about everything. Nothing is absolute. And you want to be organic. And then organic becomes tricky because what is organic? But obviously, we're looking for things. Kale, for instance. Kale, lovely stuff. Except for the problem is that it's a hell of a chelator, meaning that whatever soil it's grown in, if there are heavy metals and stuff in that soil, it'll suck it right up, and then you're going to eat it. So you need to make sure that if you're eating kale that's legitimately grown in organic soil, so that we know the soil is healthy.
It's almost like you can't really know for sure unless you're growing it yourself.
Unfortunately, to a certain extent, that's correct, but it's also about who's your trusted. Who do you trust, right? So where are you buying your food from so that you know you can trust with that what they say it's organic? Okay, we have a couple of grocery stores in the area, but the other thing about organic doesn't keep, doesn't sit around on the shelf for days and weeks. Organic, think about your bananas. Okay, your bananas were typically picked 3 months at least before you see them. They're put in these huge warehouses where they gas them in order to stop them from ripening. Then they ship them off to the store.
Right.
You buy them green, and 2 days later, they're rotten. So, organic food, legitimate organic food, first of all, doesn't do that. There's a process of decomposition, but you also have to keep purchasing food in order for good organic food to be kept around so that you can eat well and eat safely. And I'm blessed that my wife does that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm growing my first garden this year. We've already had our first harvest.
What'd you put in it?
Yeah,
What are you growing?
lettuce, Swiss chard, arugula, kale, bok choy, tomatoes, um,
Ah,
Japanese eggplant.
sounds marvelous.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like, it's really hard. I don't know how I'm going to go back to the supermarket after you've grown your own, and it's amazing because it's actually not that
It tastes
hard to
different,
do
doesn't it?
either if you have the time and you tend to it.
Yes, yes, yes. We've engineered tomatoes so that they look gorgeous, they transport well, and they taste like nothing.
Yeah, and that's how we get conditioned, right? And we think that's what how it's supposed to taste like. Yeah, so as we kind of wrap this conversation up, I mean, we've talked about so many different things. Um, but what are some of the key takeaways from this conversation? I mean, you also have your book, Why We Are Still Sick.
So my book, Why You're Still Sick, my book is focused on people who are struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic pain syndromes, uh, people who have chronic headaches. But it talks all about this stuff about sleep, about nutrition as part of this. But what we found is that what's happening in these people who get chronically ill and what's happening increasingly in the population is we're seeing autoimmune diseases. And we're seeing autoimmune diseases because these people, we've got all this set up, we've been exposed to these toxins, and your immune system's getting weakened and breaking. And in some cases, then an infection comes along and breaks the immune system. And now what happens is the immune system, our own best friend, is attacking us and doing damage, causing inflammation in our brain and elsewhere. And the symptoms are fatigue and pain and focus and concentration issues and sleep disturbances. And so we need to step back and take a bigger look to do everything you can. So the book is both for a path forward in order to help people recover their health, but it's also about teaching us everyday things so that we're optimizing our health so that we can, in fact, live as long and as healthy as possible. Because that's what we want. We want long, healthy, vital lives, not just long lives. And the other thing is I'll tell you, I come back from these conferences and what is happening and the speed at which things are happening in terms of longevity is flat out astonishing. We are now moving to the point of being able to build organs from your own DNA. We can print them. We are only a matter of a few years away, a few years. I'm not talking 10, 20 years from now. I'm talking 3 to 5 years of being able to build bladders, of being able to build livers, of being able. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I was astonished at how close we are, and how fast things are progressing. So you want to do everything to keep yourself alive because we're getting real good at helping you stay alive. And so there's reason for huge optimism. The other thing is you need to get a proper physical. So your vitamin D levels, okay? Vitamin D, we talk about vitamin D for not being sick, not for being healthy. So vitamin D levels should be 50 to 80 nanograms per deciliter when you get it checked. Vitamin D should be part of your physical, okay? Period. So there's a lot of things that we don't do on a standard physical that need to be done on a standard physical. Okay, I do an immune checkup on people, and in fact, I did an immune checkup on a patient this morning and found something that may indicate a very early cancer. Which, by the way, we're coming to the point where there are a couple of labs looking at the ability to take your blood and tell you what stage cancer, if you have a cancer, and what stage it's at, and exactly where it is in your body from your blood smear. Okay, and can grade it from 0 to 16. So now we're going to be able to intervene at a point where we can actually fix that before it becomes a problem for you. That is just around the corner. So there's a lot of stuff coming and it's coming fast. Unfortunately, a lot of physicians are not staying up with this and aware of it. But the reality of the matter is it's there. And it's worth doing the research and worth finding out what's going on. Things we can do in terms of helping repair your joints. We're getting ready to be able to do some gene intervention that will actually allow you to regenerate a knee joint
That's
or a hip joint
crazy. That's so amazing.
without having to
Wow.
replace it. That's so cool. I can't think of a more exciting time to be around, and I'm just excited for myself because well, I'm aging also, right? And I want to do it vibrantly. But I'm excited for what we can do for the patients, for what I can do for my people in order to help them recover their health and help them have truly vibrant, long lives.
That's amazing. Dr. Kaplan, if people want to follow you, learn more about you, where do they go?
KaplanClinic.com, Kaplan Clinic.com is our website. The book, Why You're Still Sick, is going to be out on Amazon. You know, the objective is how do we make your life better? That's the goal.